live stream. Got it. Okay. And I think it says it's streaming, but on my confirmation page, it's still doing that like progress bar. But I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust this is real. Hello. How is everyone?
Look at you trusting.
Oh God. Oh God. Okay. Can you hear me? Hear me? Okay.
Yes. Can you hear us?
Everything's good now. Okay. I had to mute the YouTube. I don't know why they think that I want to watch me while I'm doing me. So now we're good. Okay. Back to the agenda. I know that Naomi, you wanted to pick up the conversation that we were having about financial stuff. I also think we should really talk about the Ted Hope call because so much came out of that. And then I know, Alicia, the website, and then I'm launching a Patreon this week. What do we want to start with?
My God, I think, can we start with the website? Because I feel like that's the simplest and quickest thing.
Yep.
To do.
Thank you for doing that, Alicia.
You're welcome. I mean,
I emailed this, but I only have 2 notes.
Okay.
One is, when people click on the YouTube link, can it open in a new tab versus taking them away from our page?
Okay.
And then I think our headshots and bios should be in alphabetical order.
And same for the salutation at the end. When you hyphen and our names, I think we should just go by, because that's what we did for the incubator, right? We had this like alphabetical order that we always use, and it was nice.
Got it.
My only thought, which is so wonderful, by the way, my only thought is, can we use the color logo for the pop-up? But I know that you already have a color scheme, and then maybe the color scheme's contrasted, and that's why you chose to use the black and white logo for the pop-up.
Oh, for the pop-up. What do you mean?
For the widget. So you screen grabbed the pop-up that is like, welcome to the movement, story made, and has the logo at the top.
That's not a pop-up. That's it. That's a welcome email.
Oh, okay. Oh, I should just go to our website and actually thoroughly respond to your question instead of doing the Cliffs Notes version of what it is. There it is. Oh, the full logo is on the website. Oh, it's so nice. Okay.
That is that's the welcome email for when people sign up. Yeah. It hasn't been automated yet because that's just the draft so far. And I also want to add a question there to sort of get the conversation going. Yeah. No need to come up with that today, but that could be something that we're all thinking about as far as what question would be a good jump off point for that. And the logo is in black only because there's so much other color.
Yeah, that's what I was assuming.
That the black seemed like the best choice. I was worried. I didn't know about the color background, if it's too much, or would just like a white background be better and let all of the color pop and have the logo in color. I could make a draft that's like that so we can compare and contrast if needed.
I liked your instinct. I'm fine to settle on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. So the only thing left to do is I'll take care of the things that you guys just said, the new page and alphabetical order, and we'll get the question together and then I'll just set it up. But as of now, anyone who signs up, it does go into our email list. They just won't get an automatic welcome email at the moment.
You're amazing.
Yay.
I did just catch a typo in the email.
Okay.
As invested as we are in building an indie film ecosystem, it says a indie film ecosystem.
Got it.
Looks great.
Quick question, if we're trying to do quick cleanup things, and I just only noticed it when I was doing the Google Drive for our notes, we still are giving Drive access to former members of the pod. And I didn't want it to make it seem like a passive aggressive action to just take them off. So is there something that we should be doing, or should we unceremoniously take people out of the drive? Should we keep it open in the sense of transparency? Who cares that I just didn't know what people wanted to do.
I doubt any of them will mind if we just take them off, but it also doesn't bother me particularly to have them on there.
Yeah, I feel like you guys know the other people better than I do. So, but I feel like they don't care that they're on the drive or not. Like, I don't really think it would matter one way or the other.
I think they've probably deleted our folder from their drive.
Probably immediately upon resignation. Well, I don't know why I am a little bit more proprietary over internal documents. I'd like to take them off. And I'm happy to just do it today and get over it.
I doubt.
Sounds good.
Okay, now it's one of the big items.
Right, so we're talking about picking up financing.
Yeah, maybe that feels like it should have the attention it deserves at the top of the meeting.
But just so we know what we're looking at. So financing, the Ted Hope debrief, Liz's Patreon. What else?
I think that's it.
Accountability check-in.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Alicia, do you have any items?
Nope. My item is taken care of, so.
Great. All right, yeah, let's pick up the financing conversation.
Cool. I might even have to open up the old notes document from last week.
I can kick us off. The thought I had since last week, because I think I had raised the question of like, what else can we offer people within a Patreon to like, so it's not just behind the scenes. And I got to thinking about how customized to each filmmaker and film that can and should be, like thinking about the universe of things that I specifically can offer people. That should be what mine is, you know, and like Alicia has other gifts that she's offering people, and that I think it will be helpful to brainstorm with each other what each of us can offer, but that I think probably the magic is in each film offering the specific set of things that will speak to their audience.
That has been a breakthrough for me in the past week, when I got so excited by our call last week. And then for some reason, I thought I kept feeling like I had to have permission from everyone in this pod to do anything. And then I kind of felt this paralysis due to that. And then when I realized that I could just decide what I wanted to do for my film, and each of us can do it, was crazy, right? Like, I'm free. So I can tell you the type of things I'm doing in my Patreon, if that's helpful right now for anyone, or if that's not useful. But back to your point, Naomi, it's like keeping it film specific feels right. Like but I do want to fundraise as a group, but doing it in Patreon feels slow and unwieldy and really tough.
Agreed. My assumption was that we would each do our own. I just didn't see how combining that type of fundraising, unless we had extraordinarily similar films and or were the key creatives on those films, I didn't see how it would really benefit the film or the fans to combine them.
Yeah.
I do think there's a pitch later for a WeFunder as the
yes
all the films are a little bit further along as a slate WeFunder.
I'm very much in support of that, especially in conjunction with the Ted Hope conversation, which again, I don't mean to telegraph things that we haven't talked about yet, but there's something there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting with bated breath for this to vote. It's
I
been
also
dropping like tidbits.
This is like the verbal equivalent of vague booking.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I also got a pop-up ad for Legion M in my
Mhm.
Facebook feed this week.
I'm working with them on a film right
You
now.
are?
Yeah. I'm co-producing. I've really done very little. But I'm co-producing this guy's first feature, and they officially signed a deal with Legion M. So I'm in the production meetings, so I
Uh-huh.
can talk a little bit about what happens behind the scenes. But tell me, but you like the equity crowdfunding model that they're doing?
Well, and I think an equity crowdfunding model. Sorry, my puppy has decided that it's biting time. Um, I think an equity crowdfunding model for a quote unquote studio makes so much sense because um, it's like more exciting to buy into ownership to own $25 of a studio than of a individual movie. Um, and I think they did such a good job of like pitching it as you're being part of like you're helping build the future of film, an independent future of film, um, which I think we can obviously do. Hello, Timber. Come here.
Is that because I actually haven't looked at their outward facing documents. I can just speak to the meetings I've been a part of, but they have spoken of crowdfunding campaigns for individual films. Are they also is part of that fueling the studio, or is that the pitch?
Why are you paying attention to the screen and not to me? Um, so the way they originally launched, I think, at least the way I became aware of them was that they were pitching an act they you could you could micro invest into the studio,
Mm.
and it was going to be, and again, I haven't followed them that closely, but I think this is actually good because this is like my vague peripheral this was what I got excited about in a vague peripheral way, was that it sounded like the investors would then get to like be part of choosing films and um like give input. Like it sounded like you were going to get to be an investor of a studio.
Mhm.
That's my understanding as well. I've been following them for a while, but like at a distance. And yeah, it's just you get to be a part of the studio. I'm not sure what kind of decisions you get to make as a member. I remember reading it and feeling like you're not really empowered to make any sort of truly significant decisions, but it was definitely like the illusion of participation in the process. And I had been more interested in particularly when I was really looking at equity crowdfunding. I was more interested in how much power can actually be given
Mm.
to the fans when it comes to even, casting and choosing art and things like that. But because I think that would be really interesting. And I ran into a lot of negative, I brought this up to quite a few people, and I ran into a lot of negative thoughts regarding what directors or what directors in particular would feel comfortable giving up that amount of control in their project. So that was something to think about, but also it's like, you don't necessarily have to work with someone who isn't vibing with that type of process.
I think there's a way to delineate which decisions people get to be part of and not, because I actually don't believe in crowdsourced art. I believe in the role of an artist to make creative decisions. However, I believe in the audience to know about marketing things, right? Or to know about like the things they're going to be smarter about certain things than the artist is going to be. So I think there's a way to sort of like draw a line in between those things so that they are meaningfully participating in decisions that will affect real things, but not that the director or any artist has to give away their decision making power.
Yeah, it's final cut, right? Like who gets final cut of the picture, who gets final decision, creative decision on the casting. I mean, each film needs to decide that for themselves. But like it's the same thing as going to a sales agency and saying, what is the value of these 20 actors? Right. So it's like,
right.
It's just intel, and that's how we could look at it if each of us individually chooses to employ that.
Which definitely feeds into our connecting artists and audience tenet, right? Like if they're actively getting to participate in voicing feedback on these things, we're going to make better decisions and they're going to feel ownership and we're going to feel connected. And
for what it's worth, the film that I'm doing with Legion M is not, we haven't even spoken to any sort of influence from anyone. I mean, it is Kyle's the director, is putting together the list of the actors that he wants. He hired the casting director. Legion M is supporting the film in development and helping raise funds. But an equity crowdfunding is not a default for this film. So Legion M have different spires and spindles, right? It may be a very traditional production company in some respects.
And maybe that's how they began, but maybe that's not where they are now. I mean,
I don't know.
This was, I think, years ago
But happy to, I mean, I could very easily reach out to them. And if we wanted to do some collaboration or talking or intelligence recon, we can do that.
I mean, if they'd be willing to talk to us, I would love to hear what they learned, because I feel like if they have evolved beyond their original pitch, it would be really interesting to learn why and what's worked and what hasn't.
I'll talk to Kyle about the best use of time, like the best time to do that, and then happy to schedule the meeting.
Great.
Yay.
I've been feeling like I need to go slower with my projects, in that I put the cart before the horse. I'm like, am I going to say it backwards? You know, I'm working on this short, which is written, but it does need some work. And financing it shouldn't be that big of an issue. However, like whether I get crowdfunding or not, I think I should be able to finance it. But I'm like, I need to slow down and use this time to build audience before I even entertain any ideas of crowdfunding or building a membership or anything like that. And so where I've been over the past week is, what kind of content can I create? How can I launch, first of all, a community right now? But what kind of content can I create for free to fill the community with? That's where my mind has been, but you know, that all requires a lot of time and effort. So I've been trying to break that down and see what I can do for the least amount of cost that I can put out there. So that's what I'm working on. And I'm still working on the scripts as well, but.
Did you sign up for Brie do you know Brie Castellini, Naomi?
The name is familiar.
She worked at Starable, and I met with her when I was at Sundance, and now she does a podcast with Christina Raya of Seed and Spark called Breaking In, a Breaking Out. It's somehow, I said it wrong, but the acronym is BOOBY. So whatever it is, breaking out, breaking in, that's what it is.
Yeah.
She does a newsletter that's just romance novel recommendations. And honestly, it's like the most valuable newsletter I have. And it's like, what does it take her? Like, she already reads the content, she writes a little blurb, and then she has a little fire rating at the end with how hot it is. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's helpful. Um, but just because I know, Alicia, you're so well versed with queer content and in different subsets of art outside of that. I don't mean just to be like, you're the queer girl, but and you're so good at like knowing about newsletters. Is it like, could it just be a recommendation engine at this point to build an audience?
Mean, I already have an Instagram account dedicated to that called Queer Girl Book Recs. But I haven't posted on it in a long time. And you know, obviously that's on me. And there was interest in it when I first started it, but this was during the pandemic. Lots of things, lots of things were started and left behind in 2020. So that's one thing that I'm considering. No, actually, I hadn't considered bringing that back, but I will put that on my list. To bring it back, but change it a bit to bring it more of under the umbrella of my own actual identity and not just this random username. I mean, it wasn't random, but a username that isn't actually connected to me.
Right.
I'm intrigued by what I think you're saying. Can I just say it back to you so that I make sure I understand?
Yes.
So I think what you're saying is that you would basically start a Patreon or something, or a paid newsletter, something like that, around content that you are offering the community that you know would like your film way in advance of even necessarily having a script for your film, so that by the time you make this is very smart. Yes,
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's very smart.
And I've really been focusing in on YouTube as sort of the destination for where I want my films and series to live. I feel like, obviously, there's no way to compete with anyone else that is streaming, but you can essentially create your own streaming content, your own streaming channel on YouTube. And the key is, can you get enough subscribers to actually make money? Mm-hmm. I've found this cool website that tells you how much money each channel is making based on their subscribers. And it tells you how much money they're making in ad content every month. And I'll send it. And how much money they're potentially making from affiliate marketing every month. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I only looked up like two things, so I looked up one company that there's this web series they have that's been popping up all over the place. Like, I saw it on YouTube a few weeks ago and put it on my list of things to watch. And I saw it pop up on Twitter and people are just organically talking about it. It seems I believe it's in Portuguese. So I cannot say the name because I do not want to mangle the language of the production company, but the series is called Stupid Wife. This production company, it seems like they were only releasing things on YouTube. They have about 1 million subscribers on their channel. I don't know if they have a paid membership, which I know you can do on YouTube as well. So I'm like, it's kind of giving you everything that you would want when you're producing video content without having to create your own platform someplace else.
We interviewed a woman named Kristen Baker a few months ago who did create. Do you know Kristen Baker?
Yes.
Oh, is she going to? Oh, we're live streaming. I won't ask this question. Okay, I will leave it there. And
why? No, that wasn't a bad yes.
Oh, okay.
That was a good yes.
There was like a whisper to it.
Yes.
Well, I was just thinking, like you just said, like, it's a lot of work to create your own platform. It's like, well, she did. I like her. I've only talked to her for an hour. I was very inspired by her. Maybe there's something there too, a collaboration. You can make your work in conjunction, put it on Tello. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe she could be a part. This again could go back to the Ted Hope conversation, which I will drop another breadcrumb, which could be about brand subsidiaries of Story Made. and they could be part of this empire that you grow.
The yes was because I'm a queer woman and you're asking me about like
Oh,
the
is she
main
really?
destination for like for queer stories. Like they were in the game they've been in the game for a very long time. That's why I was like, yes, I know Kristen.
I am so vanilla that I don't know anything. I'm just like, have you heard of Shudder? Okay. Anyway, Kristen's cool.
One of the things I really appreciate about you, Alicia, and about having you in this group is that I feel like YouTube is the thing, like the film world as it exists has such a snobbery about YouTube. But if you're like, where are people watching things? It's all fucking YouTube. Like there's this man who I've probably talked about before because he's like my demon, who has this very hilarious Russian accent and has a crushing machine and just crushes things in slow motion. This is his whole, and talks about them in his funny Russian accent. And this man has more views than I will ever have for anything I ever make. Like that is just guaranteed at this point. And it drives me insane. But he is making YouTube work for him.
A lot of people are. And I mean, I was just reading this report Variety released talking about, I think it was whatever the first two demographics are for age up to 43, I think. So that first group up to somewhere in their 30s, YouTube was their number one destination. Over Netflix, it was YouTube. And then for the second group, up to 43, 44, YouTube was number 2.
Yeah.
I did a presentation for the city of Santa Clarita. It was 6 people, but I made it seem like it was a presentation for the whole city. And it was just there's 6 random filmmakers, and all they wanted to talk about was YouTube. And my entire presentation was about like A24 and like Neon. I was shocked.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's definitely room there. I mean, but whatever your platform is, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Vimeo or Patreon, all it comes back to essentially is, can you connect to the people that are for you? If you can't do that, it doesn't matter where you're showing your content.
However, I think it still does matter what platform you're on, right? Like, because if you're on YouTube and there are however many billion people watching YouTube all the time, getting them to click on something that, if they're already on YouTube, getting them to click on something that you want them to see on YouTube is an easier hurdle than getting them to go to a website that they don't know and click on something there.
Very true. Very true. I'm so protective of my YouTube algorithm.
You have a YouTube algorithm?
Well, I mean, what you watch, and it tells you what else to watch.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like no, I don't want to look up anything weird because I don't want you to start giving me weird things, because then I always find new and interesting things to watch based on my previous watch history. And like, hey, there's this random queer story from the Philippines. Do you want to watch it? Yes, I do, YouTube. Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking.
Okay. I think we should talk about the Ted Hope chat.
Yes, please.
I was just thinking about this.
I clocked that it took us 38 minutes for us to tell Ted Hope what we were doing. So we only talked to him for like 22 minutes of like meaningful brainstorming about his ideas.
Okay.
Sorry. I mean, I just think it takes a lot for us to explain the context of what the incubator is and what this.
Well, in fairness, we also gave him our entire histories.
Yeah, personal histories.
This might be my only conversation with Ted Hope in my lifetime, and I would like him to know everything I'm doing in case any of it piques his interest and he would like to participate.
Naomi and I were talking before because he was 5 minutes late, and I was telling her how nervous I was, and she was like bringing me back to earth. So it was like a big deal for us, apparently. Yeah. Okay, I will skip to. Okay, he started I don't know, Naomi. I mean, you might be, I know for sure you're better at summarizing what the conversation was, but I will say that my takeaway was he felt that when he worked in the past, I don't, again, this is live stream, so I don't want to give too much information, but in previous circumstances in his employment history, he witnessed several inefficiencies that bothered him. And so he was in the space of giving us advice about efficient empire building. Like, I think he decided that we were trying to build an empire, which is not something any of us made explicit. But
is not entirely inaccurate.
Right.
100% accurate in my case. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So my takeaway that got me excited, and again, if I'm putting the cart before the horse, Naomi, you just like pull the reins, is that he was very encouraged with the idea of StoryMade being a brand and the brand having a long trail to it, so to speak. Like, it wasn't just one film. He claims that self-distribution efforts don't make meaningful systemic change because it's one filmmaker doing one effort and then disappearing from the marketplace after the movie is released. And so he was really encouraged with the idea of slates and in a caravan and all the things we talked about in the past. There's a lot to go into there, but for my piece, what I start to get excited about is maybe there's a subsidiary, there's StoryMade, and then there's StoryMade Horror. And then for my part of things, taking Ted Hope's advice could be launching to the marketplace with my feature. And then if we want to, acquiring or creating partnerships with other horror content creators and having them be the ones that follow my film at the places that are horror specific, rather than us trying to figure out the same screening spaces for all of our 4 films. That might be square peg, round hole situation. But if I have a bunch of feminist body horror films in a row, then I can pitch the same places again and again. What struck me or is taking me aback a little bit is the idea of, are we then just emulating evil corporate overlords by acquiring films, taking percentages, and then making empty promises that we don't know if we can keep? Like, there's just a lot of copycatting there.
It's interesting though, because you took the seed of what he said and your brain went to the corporate overlord.
Yeah, it did. He didn't do that. You're right.
I think there are other. So I think sort of one of the core things he said so many things and I took notes. One of my favorite things he said is that I think he said it was Blumhouse has standardized agreements. So 2-page contracts that are standard. You cannot negotiate the deal terms. You either sign them or you don't. And you have 48 hours in which to make that decision. For actors, for everything. And it saves so much time and legal fees. And also, I don't know if this is true for them, but could mean that everyone's working under equal terms, which I think is very cool. Anyway, that's a side note. But to what Liz was saying, the thing that stayed with me the most is how he was talking about the need for scale in some way. Like, yeah. He's like, the first 5 films may not make money. There were 4 films. They may not succeed, but if that's just the first wave, and then there's a second wave and a third wave, and in some, whether it's us 4 continuing to make films, or we're adding other people into the mix, or like there has to be sort of a sustained growth plan in order to get where we want to go.
And I went corporate, right? Because I thought, how am I going to make money? How am I going to make money? And if I'm curating people and if I'm trying to blaze a trail with them, how does the revenue structure work with the originator of that path? I have no idea.
But StoryMade isn't just about a type of end product film, right? The whole point of it is that it's a different way of making movies. So it seems like acquiring films after they're made would be antithetical to what we're doing. It would have to be like, we find other filmmakers who are willing to buy into this model
Yeah. But then, sorry, but that creates so many different, that feels almost like I don't even know, like a Pandora's box, because then we're all making our first films, we're trying to finance them, we're trying to figure them out, which is a like a full-time job that we're fitting into our lifestyles, and then bringing in enough meaningful filmmakers to impact their production at an early stage feels like that feels overwhelming.
But it wouldn't all have to happen at once, right? Because it's not, you don't necessarily need all of the horror. It would be a lot to take on in any event to have like 5 horror films, 5 queer films, 5 psychosexual thrillers.
I know.
Like, I think it's like, I think it's the sustained content over time.
Yeah, I think I'm just like, oh no, it'll take too long. I gotta front load it. How do I front load it? But I don't know. I'm gonna add your note to the notes.
This is interesting. It feels like, so my immediate reaction was, I've always looked at Story Made as more of a stamp and less of a studio.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we go through the process of figuring out how we can make these films in a sustainable ecosystem that we want, and we document those things, then we are giving that to the world.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use it. And if you use these things, then you are, in effect, a story-made film,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's not necessarily, I have hesitation about becoming like a studio in any kind of way, and not just always evolving as far as what is the next step, what is the next iteration of how we can make films the way we want and be able to live life the way we want. And I feel like all that other stuff puts a lot of heavy pressure on what we want Story Made to be. And also all that other stuff would be so many years down the road, that even discussing it now feels like we are way ahead of ourselves, as far as like having a story, the idea of a story made horror and a story made this psychosexual thriller and the other. Like, I think that something like that would come into play years down the road, when we're like, there are enough people involved in this movement, right, that we can say, hey, we want to put on a tour. Who's doing horror? Let's try to, see if we can organize something so that we can take our films on tour together, or something like that.
I agree with not. I don't think that what we're doing in the first iteration changes. I think the larger point was there has to be a second and a third iteration if this is going to get where you want it to go, because the chances that we'll get it all right the first time, and that we can get enough leverage and enough eyeballs and enough thing the first time, seems low.
Right. But I mean, that's a part of our core guidelines. So I feel like that is perhaps stating like what is obvious about Story Made is that, yes, this is the first attempt, and there will be many more, whether it's the 4 of us or doing it again or other people. The point is to do it, is to keep doing it and to learn and to change things so that we can continue to grow and evolve.
How do we reinforce that transfer of leadership or sharing of leadership? Is it like, who was I talking to? Someone was talking about, I was talking to Sherry Page, who works at the Half Initiative. And she was talking about, mentorship, the importance of mentorship. And it's like, should we always have the next creator shadowing each one of our sets, who also wants to be a part of making their film in the Story Made milieu or whatever it is that we're shilling here? Because maybe it's my lack of trust in others. It's that I don't know if I just give out this information to the culture, which I think we should be doing. We should be giving information out freely to the community. I don't know if anyone takes up the mantle and says, I'm going to credit StoryMade with everything I learned. They're going to credit the 15 million things that are on the internet. You know, they're going to credit No Film School and Indie Film Hustle implicitly. And there's going to be no real quantifiable change. Like we would have more, I don't know. I get ahead of myself, I know, but I'm just saying, like, there needs to be some baton passing, I think. I just don't know what it is.
I've been thinking about a stamp, right? Like an actual stamp or certification. Like what makes it known that you are a story-made film, right? And so in first understanding, what does it mean to be a story-made film? And if you have checked these boxes of whatever that is at that moment, then you get to stamp your project as story-made. And our job is to make it so that means something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does it, okay, great, you're a story-made film, sure. Like, we want people to know that that means you treated people in a certain way on your set, and you may have done, you know, XYZ, whatever the thing is. I feel like that's the step between where we are now and adding other people to StoryMade. But we have to figure out the process ourselves first to understand what a StoryMade. We don't even know what a StoryMade film looks like yet.
Yeah.
I like that. I also like the idea of having a filmmaker on each set who intends to do it themselves. That seems like a very cool idea to me. I mean, I have a feeling that might happen organically. I mean, hopefully the set is great enough that everybody on that set is like, this is how I want to make a movie the next time, and it proliferates. But I think the idea of having like a designated mentee seems cool. That echoes a lot of stuff that came out of Constellation Incubator, like the idea of these mentorship, like practical mentorship programs.
I agree with everything everyone's saying, but I think there's like this devil on my shoulder who's like, wouldn't you like to create a mini studio, Liz? Let's do it.
But you should. But does it have to be StoryMade? Like, I fully intend to create my own independent studio, but I already have something set up for that, right? So StoryMade is like the cherry on top of the things that I'm already doing and helping me understand what does it mean to be an ethical filmmaker, right?
So it doesn't have to pull StoryMade into that. It's like, I can make Best Friends Forever, and that could be the first movie. I mean, I have ownership over it, right? And if I decide to go into distribution and form my own distribution company, I can still do that. It just, Best Friends Forever has the stamp from StoryMade. And if we make a big splash, that falls back on the brand.
Yeah. I think another way to think about it is, I think we're all empire builders. We all want to have a media empire. But if part of what's toxic and terrible about the existing system is what a studio looks like, then isn't it conceivable that a studio that looks like something else is what StoryMade becomes? Like if you simply take away the hierarchical decision making from a studio, they're sharing resources, right? They're boosting each other's they're boosting each film's distribution. They're doing all the things we're doing. It's just that you don't have one or a handful of old white guys sitting at the top deciding what everyone is going to watch.
Yeah.
You know?
A decentralized studio.
Right.
I like that. That's exciting.
That is exciting. I got a little feeling when you said it. The body never lies. Anytime I start to do that, I know it's something good.
I did want to mention something, because when I went off in my like, oh my God, I'm building this empire, and all these, ideas started germinating, right? Like about what connections I have and how I could be supportive in distribution. And it doesn't have to be tied to Story Made, but I regularly work with Giant Pictures, and I really like Nick. And again, this is live streamed. He might watch this one day and be like, Liz, this is stupid. But there could be a world where I could create some sort of direct output deal with a digital distributor or a lab for us. And again, I know that it's like incestuous with this concept of studio and working with gatekeepers but if we do want to eventually, if there are filmmakers who want their films up on traditional digital platforms, working with a company like Indie Rights or Giant that are kind of on the margins of hybrid distribution, that would be cool. And then I could help, like if I can pilot that with some films here, or maybe just my film here, that works out well for me, is what I'm saying. Because then I can see if I can build that with more filmmakers later on down the road.
But I think I would say to you what I said to Alicia about YouTube. Like, I think where is the audience for that film? If the audience for that film is on Apple TV, yeah, we better come up with a way to get doing that. And you are such a well-positioned person to help that happen. But I think it's just the default assumption that all films should be on the same platforms when the audiences for all films are not in the same place. And in fact, the vast majority of audiences are not on any of these platforms. They're on YouTube.
That's it right there. Everyone is nowhere except YouTube. Like everyone is looking at things on every different platform, but I guarantee you everyone is also looking at YouTube, even if they've never seen Apple TV a day in their life.
Well, all trailers are on YouTube, right? The first time you hear about a movie is on YouTube.
No, we are not sponsored by YouTube. If anybody
and we're live streaming to YouTube right now,
which is cool.
Interesting. So I keep on, I'm getting like itchy to talk about something else, but I don't know if it's going to be a distraction. But I was supposed to be in Austin this weekend. I was supposed to be at the Austin Film Festival, and the flight got canceled, and I had the opportunity to rebook, and I pulled out because I got so anxious about leaving my son. And it was like a real dramatic few days. And then I just started to think like, I'm desperate to build a system where you can see your family and make a movie at the same time. Like it's just like driven me in a whole nother way. Like I literally canceled a weekend because I didn't want to be away from him. And I did so without any guilt or I didn't feel bad about it. I was like, I made my choice. Like I want to be here. But I think that there's this, I don't know. I know I'm the only mother in this group, but there's something there that I would like to broadcast as part of what we're doing, right? Is like, for whatever reason, we need boundaries. And then how can you, especially in the horror world, when everyone in my production is like, well, let's just go to Joshua Tree and rent a van and just all camp out. And I'm just like, you want my 4-year-old to camp out with us with like a tub full of blood right there? Like, I don't know, maybe I'm okay with it. I thought that when I brought this up, more would come out, but it's not. But just if there's some way we can, guys, can we just figure that out? Can we figure out how we can make this movie while I can see my kid? That's what I'm asking. Let's maybe not in the next 9 minutes, but
probably not in the next 9 minutes. But I do think brainstorming on things like that is an extremely worthy use of our time together.
Yeah.
Yes. Because what it comes down to, like you were saying, is boundaries, whether that is boundaries around a family or something else that is happening in your life. It all essentially comes back to self-care, which the industry lacks completely. So just recognizing that self-care is a thing, and how do we allow people on set to protect that?
Because I don't think I could go away for 2 weeks. Like I just can't. I don't see myself doing that anymore.
Well, and the reality that definitely who has got to tell stories has been affected by the fact that if you
Hmm.
make films,
You
you
can,
have to be in
yeah.
absolute servitude to that schedule.
Have you ever heard of film sets with childcare?
I'm in the community where there's like buzzing about that. I mean, they're talking a lot about film festivals with childcare. Like that's the main topic that I'm
Hmm.
Is this
um,
Moms in Film that you're in?
Moms in Film, but also like we pitched a panel to South by me and Tiffany Pritchard, who works for Screen International, because she went to Cannes and she was like, "This is paradise!" Like they like take care of your child so you can go and network and but film sets. I think I've only heard about it informally, and on TV they have childcare for writers' room participants, but I don't know if they have it for directors.
I know that Moms in Film in 2017, 2018 came up with a mobile childcare unit
Oh my gosh.
that they pioneered at a couple of film festivals, but it was also available for sets to hire. And I don't know what's happened with it since, but they had definitely worked on this.
That's interesting. Mobile childcare unit.
Yeah. Or I mean, I made some comment to my podcast host and he like kind of laughed at me, but I was like, I want my childcare paid for. It's like, like as part of my budget. Is that crazy? Is that selfish? Who knows?
That's what they were pitching. They were
Yeah,
getting productions to pay for it.
I think that's great. I love it. But then I would also want the same for people who don't have families. Like what is the equivalent, right? And because there must be some congruency or an opportunity for congruency if there's, I mean, obviously if they're a caretaker for a family member or something, like that's very similar situation.
Mm, I mean, yes to the caretaker, but as someone without a kid, I feel like it impacts me not at all that someone with a child is getting provided childcare. I don't need whatever, like, I don't need something extra
100%. Yeah.
because somebody else got something extra too. Like that's not, it shouldn't, here's the thing, it shouldn't be looked at as something extra.
Yeah.
That's the problem, I think, is that should be a standard to provide childcare so that everyone has equal access to the workplace.
Yeah. 100%. As someone who has a very needy puppy, if dog care could be sort of folded into
That's what
that.
I'm saying. Like that is the congruency. Like you are
But
taking
you just
care
put
of
the dogs
something.
and the kids together and they can entertain each other.
Sorry, I know we're like running out of time. Really quickly, there's a retirement home that is in the same location as a childcare space. I don't know if people know, there's a documentary about it called The Growing Season, and it's like the most beautiful thing in the world. There's like old men trying to put on their jackets and then toddlers trying to put on their jackets in the same way. And it's like heartbreaking, but like really lovely. So let's do that on our sets too. Let's
We'll hire old people to take care of the kids.
Boom, solved.
And the dogs.
I don't need to talk about my Patreon. I know it's left on the agenda, but I'm launching it and I'll let you know how it goes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would love to know, like, what are you launching with? Like, can you share some details about it?
Yeah, I had a Patreon campaign in like 2017 where everyone was $2 and I just did AMAs about distribution monthly. And so I just took that campaign and rerouted tiers. And so I'm doing just a $5 level right now, I think. And the plan is to incorporate a $1 and then a much higher levels after that. I think we landed on 7 as a team and I didn't want to steal 7. So I thought, and I really wanted to do 10, but whatever, I got nervous. And what I'm doing right now is I'm going to have AMAs. I'm going to have live chat for some levels. I'm going to share drafts of the script. I already got permission from Amy. I'm going to do production meetings you know? I mean, it's basically like I'm pitching it as like we are making this movie together.
Mhm.
So I have a pinned tweet right now that's collecting email addresses for those who are interested. And then I'm going to make an announcement on my newsletter tomorrow or Tuesday. The Patreon's already technically live right now. I've just done no promotion of it. And then my idea is that like the people in the Patreon will, they're going to help dictate what levels are going to be other than the $5 level. Like I'm going to say, what else should we do? And they're going to say, well, you should have a $1 level. You should have, like, I like the idea of launching and them being a part of building the Patreon too.
That's cool.
Thank you.
Can I add some food for thought?
I want to hear all the food. Yes.
So, there's this thing I've been thinking about that I read recently, someone did, where they did offer different levels, but you got the same thing. And the purpose was, the different levels are because you love the project, you can afford to pay more and you want to, and it's as simple as that.
I just got like I got a high from that. I love that. I think I'm going to do that.
I have been on the verge of launching a Patreon for about 3 years, and I even have my video, and I never pulled the trigger. And that's my motto: is that everybody should get everything.
I love that so much. Let's all do that. Can we all do that? Is that okay?
That's my plan. That's what I plan to do.
I think that's really cool. At Picture Motion, we did a sliding scale once to screening hosts, and we just said pay what you can, and people didn't always choose the lowest level. People can be generous.
There have been a lot of studies about this, about like pay what you can yoga classes or anything.
Yeah.
It pretty much works out because the people who can pay more do, and the people who can't don't.
I love it. I'm in. I'm going to change it tonight. And then it means I could really launch, actually, and be like, this is it. Accountability with our 1 minute. Should we?
Yeah.
I got my 5 pages.
Hey!
Yay!
By the skin of my teeth, but I got them.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. We finished our draft and sent it to you, and we're in the process of scheduling a reading for ourselves to hear it out loud too.
Nice.
I was supposed to announce to my newsletter, that's tomorrow. I'm supposed to pick dates. I have not done that, but I am scheduling a Zoom with my producers and key crew members. So that's happening. Liz almost did it.
I think tomorrow's an acceptable time span.
Cool.
Agreed.
Do we have time to think of goals for the next week?
I'm going to do some more pages. A goal is 10, but 5 as the little goal. And I want to have a better plan, like at least a draft of a plan for what kind of content I want to do for this community.
This week we get to coast on the script because we're just waiting for feedback. And I want to have our reading fully cast for the 12th. And then next week, I get to hear what you think about the script.
Very excited. I haven't read it yet, but I'm still very excited.
Me too. Yeah, I mean, I'll launch the Patreon. And that's my goal, is to start setting meetings and set my first AMA.
Awesome.
We did it.
Happy Sunday.
All right, everybody.